No DQ live recap of AEW Dynamite for Wednesday, May something or other. I'm not sure if I should say the date. All right, I'll say it. Hopefully Kane's not around here. May 19th. May 19th, 2021. We have the AEW Double or Nothing pay-per-view coming up in just over a week. Let's go ahead and get started with this recap. Shout out to the chat room, everybody watching, whether it's live or on demand. Let's talk about Dynamite. We kicked off with Christian Cage in action against Matt Sydal. This reminded me of 2009 ECW. I'm not sure if they ever faced each other in ECW, but it just gave me that vibe. You had Taz on commentary for this. You had the people in the audience doing dueling chants, chanting both these guys. Christian hit a spear to Sydal. Sydal kicked out of that, and then Christian picked up the win with the kill switch. Pretty standard match here. Sydal did get a little bit of offense, but in the end, Christian scored the pinfall. And afterwards, Christian showed some good sportsmanship. He helped up Sydal, gave Sydal a hug. Christian's a smart man. You want to make sure that you have Sydal watching your back because you got to deal with Team Taz. And sure enough, Taz was trash talking at the commentary desk. Ricky Starks appeared and said that they have some business they have to handle. That led to the rest of Team Taz attacking Christian and Matt Sydal from behind. You had Cage going after Cage, and then you had Hangman Adam Page make the save. Page went after Cage, but he got overwhelmed, and then Cage hit Page with a power bomb to further build up their upcoming match at the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. And Marshall Leonard says he likes the match and hopes that Christian will win the Casino Battle Royal for a future world title match. I think Christian has to be the odds-on favorite. Keep in mind, we already had a tease of Christian versus Kenny Omega, and at some point one would think that we're going to see that match. We had an interview with Brian Pillman Jr. and Garrison. They were going for the AEW Tag Team titles in the main event against the Young Bucks. Pillman brought up how the Young Bucks have been making fun of his dad, and Pillman Jr. said that his dad is not the reason he got into wrestling. If anything, Brian Pillman Sr. is the reason Jr. stayed out of the wrestling business. However, it was people like the Young Bucks that inspired him to get into wrestling. And Garrison also put over the Bucks, although says that they are not the same guys he knew years ago when he was running the Bucks' merchandise tables, and said that they need a reality check. Nice little promo from these guys to set up the main event. We had Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston up against the Acclaimed, and both teams did pre-match promos. And we also had a rap in the arena from Max Caster, and he talked about, well, he brought up Renee Young, Jon Moxley's wife, and he said that she's been hitting up his mentions, looking for some oral sessions. And this was probably his best promo to date, in my opinion. They are getting better. Like the first few weeks, I thought it was cringy, but I do feel like they're getting a little bit more comfortable with the promos. And by the way, Moxley came out to the cover version, the 80s version of Wild Thing, which is, in my opinion, an improvement from the 60s version, although I still prefer Moxley's old theme song. At least that's my own personal preference. Moxie and Kingston went right after the Acclaimed, right when the match started. Dylan in the chat says the Acclaimed is over with him. I mean, they're definitely getting better, and we'll see what happens when we start touring again and we have fans. Like, these guys might catch fire. They got a decent shot. It's going to be really interesting to see which acts will catch on, and I think that the Acclaimed have a decent chance of being elevated once the fans return on a regular basis and AEW is touring in different cities. So anyways, Acclaimed worked over Eddie Kingston's leg for a while, and then Eddie finally got the hot tag to Moxley. And the Acclaimed attempted to cheat. A chain was tossed to Anthony Bowens. However, the referee caught him in the act. And then Max Caster tried to use the boombox, but Moxley took it away, hit Caster with the boombox. Again, referee did not see it. And then Moxley tagged in and hit the paradigm shift to pin Bowens, further putting Moxley and Kingston up in the AEW rankings. And Elon Brown says the Acclaimed are going to be big with the fans. And Israel Diaz says, I have enjoyed the Acclaimed. We had a backstage segment, a nice little throwback with Chris Jericho and Dean Malenko, who is an official in AEW. And Jericho was asked, would the Inner Circle accept the challenge for the Stadium Stampede match at Double or Nothing? And Jericho was like, everyone's going to have to wait just a little bit longer. We had Tony Schiavone in the ring interviewing Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. Scorpio cut this promo on Sting, saying that he loved Sting as a kid, but now he's an adult, and he warned Sting to step aside. And then we had Ethan Page bragging about throwing Darby Allin down the steps and playing a role in Darby losing the TNT title to Miro, and said that he will be the final nail in Darby's coffin. We then had the arrival of Sting, and Darby Allin attacked Page and Sky from behind with the skateboard, and Sting put the deathlock on Scorpio Sky to wrap up this segment. And then it was announced that Sting and Darby Allin will face the team of Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky at Double or Nothing. And they made it clear on commentary, it will not be a cinematic match. It will take place in the ring. So Sting's first proper match since, I believe it was the match with Seth Rollins back in 2015. Pretty big deal here for the fans that will be attending this, getting to see Sting back in the ring. And by the way, you can check out NoDQ.com for the full card of AEW Double or Nothing. I will be doing predictions the night before, Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I believe that's the 29th. And then the 30th, after the show, I'll be doing the live recap. Hamp Connor with the $2 super chat says, that should be a tornado tag, no holds barred. Well, considering it's Sting, I could see it being the type of match where Sting is on the apron most of the time. Darby takes a beating, Sting tags in, that sort of scenario. I think they're going to try to protect Sting and not do too much. But then again, with Sting and his way of doing things, he might want to go all out for this match. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm thinking they just do a traditional tag. I mean, it's special enough, Sting's first proper match in 6 years. I really don't think you need any other gimmicks for it. Maybe Sting hits a Canadian Destroyer. Yeah, everybody else does. We had Rebel versus Hikaru Shida, the AEW Women's Champion. She's been champion for just about a year now. And Rebel tried to feign an injury right off the bat. Shida did not fall for it. Shida even mocked Britt Baker, had a glove of her own. And then Britt got very upset by this. Britt grabbed the Women's Championship to try and distract Shida. And it worked because Rebel was able to use the crutch. However, Shida kicked out, and then Shida made a recovery, put on a submission, and picked up the win. After the match was over, Britt Baker immediately attacked Shida and hit a curb stomp on the AEW Women's Championship using Shida's head into the title. So nice little build up here for their title match. Good stuff here from the ladies. And then we had a clip that was shown from, it was shown, it was apparently recorded last week or whatever, where Orange Cassidy was backstage after he got powerbombed by Pac, whatever you want to call him, Adrian Neville. You had Orange Cassidy there. His shoulder was iced up, and you had Kenny Omega and Don Callis come into the ring, and Kenny Omega was like, you know what, we like you. We want you to be the mascot of AEW. You're just not a guy who should be in the main events. And Don Callis gave Cassidy a document, and if Cassidy was willing to give up his spot at Double or Nothing due to an injury, in the future, Orange Cassidy could get a one-on-one match with Kenny Omega down the road. Cassidy immediately tore it up, and Omega said if this match takes place as scheduled, he's not going to hold anything back, and he could possibly end Cassidy's career. He could even end his life. And Callis had another document, I guess, sensing that Cassidy might rip it up, and told Cassidy to think about it. And I guess next week on the Friday night Dynamite before the pay-per-view, they are going to have Cassidy make his decision. And guessing he's going to once again rip it up, and we'll have that triple threat. But we'll see. We had one of the managers, Mark Sterling. I barely know who this guy is. He wants to work with Jade Cargill. He said that he can take her to the top, all that stuff, do what the other managers can't do. And she basically told him to leave, saying she'll think about it. But then when he walked off, she's like, who is that guy? And I'm pretty much with her on this one. We had Serena Dee versus Red Velvet. And this was Serena Deeb's return from an injury that put her out about 3 months. She, of course, is the NWA Women's title holder. And you had Red Velvet putting up a good fight here. She was selling her leg, her knee, and she went for a moonsault, but Deeb got her knees up. And then Deeb hit a power bomb. However, Velvet kicked out of that. You had Deeb putting on the Serenity Lock, but Velvet was able to get out. However, Deeb came in with a chop block, put on the Serenity Lock again, and Velvet had to tap out at this point. Good match here with the ladies, and we actually got 2 women's matches on this show, so that was a nice plus. Good to see Serena Dee back in action. And Gary says, I absolutely love the fact that AEW had 2 women's matches this evening. Really seeing a great change of pace with the women's division this year. Great stuff. Agree with that, Gary. And we had Pac backstage. Quick promo just saying he's sick and tired of getting robbed of opportunities. And, of course, he's vowing to win the title at the pay-per-view. We then had Anthony Ogogo along with the Factory up against Austin Gunn, who had Cody Rhodes in his corner. Cody had the American flag draped around his shoulders. So now Cody is Mr. America. And Austin Gunn, he went right in trying to finish off Ogogo right off the bat. However, Ogogo hit the gut punch. Gunn was being checked on. Gunn got up. The match continued. So Ogogo hit him with a second one. Gunn refused to have the match called off. He started bleeding from the mouth. And then Ogogo hit him in the face with a punch. And that was it. Gunn was knocked out. Referee called for the bell. And then as Cody was checking on Gunn, you had Ogogo taking the American flag and he threw it up in the air. And Yeah, he got some heat for that one. I was wondering if he was gonna do something more like spit on it or something like that, but he just threw it up in the air. I guess they don't want to be that controversial, although we still have another week before the pay-per-view. Maybe they will do something like that. Gary thinks maybe they're gonna do a flag match. Yeah. I mean, this match I'm not really caring too much about. I know they're trying to make something out of a go-go, but will he actually beat Cody Rhodes? That remains to be seen. I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, that could be a scenario that puts him on the map, although maybe just the idea that Cody carries him to a 15, 20-minute quality match, that'll be enough. But we'll see what they do at the pay-per-view. Dylan Hensley with the $5 super chat. Thank you very much for that, Dylan. I appreciate it. He says, that guy with Jade was Mark Sterling. He was an indie wrestler for a while, but last year he was the kayfabe lawyer of MJF during his feud with Moxley. Man, I already forgot about all that stuff with MJF and the lawyer. Yeah. I was like, who is this guy again? Like, I remember him from something, but yeah, I actually somewhat forgot about that. I'm starting to remember it a little bit now that you bring it up. We had Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian backstage, and Daniels just shook Kazarian's hand and walked off. He actually whispered something to Kazarian before leaving. Kazarian said Daniels deserves to do whatever he wants to do, go down whatever path he wants. And Kazarian said that he lost a part of himself. He blames every single member of the Elite, and he is vowing to hunt each and every one of them down. We then had Miro come to the ring for a promo to celebrate his victory. For some reason, he was in his ring gear, even though he had no match on this show. He thanked Jesus Christ for protecting him and giving him power. I thought Miro was a heel. Why is he thanking Jesus? Shouldn't he be thanking the devil since he's a heel? He said Darby Allin talked crap about him online, and Darby just ended up getting his ass kicked. There was a "We Want Darby" chant, and Miro said, "Here's your Darby right here," and held up the championship. And we had an interruption from Lance Archer, who will be facing Miro at the pay-per-view. Kind of weird that they did a "We Want Darby" chant, even though it's Miro versus Lance Archer. And this is something that AEW has control over, because this was a taped show with the wrestlers doing the crowd reactions. Just seemed weird to me that they would have the Darby chant, because it gets you thinking, well, you want to see Miro versus Darby, not Miro versus Lance Archer. So that was a little weird to me. And the Jesus line was a little weird, considering that Miro's a heel. Dylan thinks it's a heel move to thank Jesus. It would be if he was being sarcastic about it, but he was being serious. So, yeah, it was strange. Anyways, Archer was there with Jake Roberts telling Miro to shut up, and he brought up the match last year, I should say, with Cody to crown the first TNT champion, and said he was going to win it this time. Interesting that they brought that up. You know, is Archer really going to lose twice? I'm thinking that's probably going to be the case. And he did say it will be like Godzilla and King Kong, and said he's going to make Miro his Bulgarian bitch. And Dr. NXT Scorpio with a $2 super chat says, Miro should thank Cornette for saving him. LOL. I know, right? Cornette is Miro's savior after all those comments about Miro being Bluto. And yeah, they finally got things on the right track with Miro as far as his character goes. And Miro fired back at Archer, saying that Jake Roberts needs to stay away because he'll finish off Jake, and not even Yoga will be able to save Jake. And Miro said that yes, everybody dies, but Archer will be the first. I liked that line. That was a good closing line from Miro. We had our main event of the evening, which was the Young Bucks up against the Varsity Blondes with Julia Hart. Don Callis was on commentary, as he is for all the members of the Elite their matches on Dynamite, and not sure how it goes on Dark or whatever. We had the Blondes getting their hot start, and they even mocked the Bucks at one point, but then the Bucks gained the upper hand for a while. Garrison eventually got a hot tag and was on fire, did a double spear to both Bucks, did a dive onto both of them. But then the tide turned when the Bucks started using the heel tactics. Nick had a spray can of aerosol. He sprayed Pillman in the eyes when the referee wasn't looking. And then Matt grabbed the can, and when the referee wasn't looking, sprayed Julia Hart in the face because she was trying to get the referee's attention and help out the Blonde. So Matt decided to spray her in the face. That was a pretty dirty tactic there. And then Pillman managed to get an inside cradle on Matt, but Matt kicked out. And then Matt managed to get the sharpshooter on. Nick helped out with a face buster, and Pillman finally had no other choice but to tap out. So good effort here from the Varsity Blondes, and the Bucks picked up the win with some dirty tactics. And after the match was over, the Bucks were celebrating, and that's when you had Moxie and Eddie Kingston show up. A fight broke out, and the Bucks both got choked out by Moxie and Kingston. And then to add insult to injury, Kingston and Moxley pulled off the shoes and even the socks of the Bucks. And it was announced at the very end of the show that there will be a tag team titles match. No surprise here. Bucks defending against Moxley and Kingston at Double or Nothing. And by the way, also next week, Miro will be defending the TNT Championship. Guessing he'll be retaining that next week. And again, that Dynamite is on a Friday night. I don't think I'm going to be recapping Dynamite next week because SmackDown's Friday night and don't really want to be recording something at midnight. So it'll probably just be a SmackDown recap Friday night. And then Saturday we'll be doing the predictions. And if there's any big happenings from Dynamite, we'll talk about that on the predictions video. So stay tuned for all that. And again, the full card for Dynamite is up on NoDQ.com. Show was good. It was a good Dynamite. Wasn't a top-tier Dynamite, but I was pretty entertained from start to finish. Not a lot to complain about. It was just a pretty standard show to build up the pay-per-view. Going to give it a solid B, solid 2 hours of entertainment. And, nice build-up for the pay-per-view. They got a really strong card, in my opinion. Daly's Place, full capacity crowd. Let's see what you guys thought. Gary really liked it. He gave it a B+, and Nick Lavin gives it a B+. Dr. NXT Scorpio and Michael Wayne give it a B. Israel Diaz with a B-, and Kim Hall gives it a B+, as does Calvin Bowman and Dylan, also giving it a B+. Elon Brown says he just wants to see Sting do a tope suicida at Double or Nothing. And by the way, the other big news, I'm sure we'll talk about this on the No DQ review, but I'll give my quick thoughts. AEW will be moving Dynamite to TBS in 2022. I know there's been a mixed reaction to it. Some people are like, "Oh, this is a sign that Warner is not interested in AEW and they're putting them on the secondary channel." Like, the NHL is a big deal for Warner Media. And going to TBS, I don't think it's going to negatively affect Dynamite. I think their viewership will be mostly the same. Sling TV has TBS, YouTube TV. Like, TBS is easily accessible on pretty much every service provider you can get a hold of. I think their viewership will be fine. They got the third show now, Rampage, which will be on Friday nights. I'm considering doing a recap of both SmackDown and Rampage once that starts, which means an 11 p.m. start time. Not crazy about that, but I'm considering doing that. And it's a lot of content, but You got options. That is the positive. You don't have to be like me and watch every single show every week. You can pick and choose what you want. There's plenty of content out there. Apparently, Rampage is going to be treated as an A show, not like Dark, which is basically a B show. So they're going to treat Rampage like a top tier show. It will be at 10 o'clock right after SmackDown. I think it'll do good numbers. The third hour of Raw is at 10 o'clock. I think they'll do close to 1 million, maybe even a little bit more if AEW can pick up some momentum in the summer with the return of the live fans. And Gary says that TBS really gets you more in-home viewers. And yeah, I think that could possibly even help AEW. And apparently AEW's got a renegotiated deal, and they're making good money from this deal. And ultimately, that's the bottom line. It's the money. AEW, if they're getting more money out of this now, then move to the other night. And to me, the fact that they're getting this extra show, I mean, that's a sign that Warner Media is very satisfied with this relationship. And Israel Diaz, it's going to be a 1 hour show. It's basically the third hour of primetime TV for AEW. Dylan Hensley with a $10 super chat. Thank you very much for that, Dylan. I appreciate it. He says, it really shows how much some haters want to see AEW fail. The move to TBS is good because it's in more homes. The delusion with some people amazes me with them trying to spin it like it's a bad thing. Well, that was largely Virtue and Robbie Vice on Twitter that were being very negative about it. I think it's a good thing for AEW. I don't see it as a sign that the relationship is falling apart. I think AEW is doing very well, and with the fans coming back and live touring starting up, I think things are looking pretty good for AEW. And WWE too, if they can fix up Raw, like SmackDown with Roman Reigns. Like, I'm looking forward to seeing the weekly crowds with the Roman Reigns storyline. And with AEW, you got these guys like the Acclaimed, these young teams. It's going to be interesting to see how the fans across the country react to it. I'm really looking forward to it. And I think we're going to see, I don't know how big, but I'm thinking we're going to see a boom in wrestling popularity in the summer once we start going back to live fans on a regular basis. I think people have been waiting for this. They've been wanting to see the wrestling with fans again. People are going to be hot for these shows. And I could see numbers across the board, not just AEW, but WWE too. Maybe not Raw so much, but maybe even Raw. I think we're going to see wrestling start to build up some momentum. They managed to stay in a good position for the most part during the pandemic. And now people are going to be itching for that old way of life and watching wrestling with fans again. And I think you're going to see a lot of enthusiasm, not just from the fans, but the wrestlers. They're going to be motivated, and I think it's going to be a good period for the business. I really do. I'm keeping optimistic with it. Anyways, guys, thank you for tuning in tonight. And again, we'll talk more about AEW moving to TBS. I'm sure Virtue will be, trying to spin this as a negative thing. That's how he rolls, likes to troll people. And then, of course, he'll say he's not trolling, whatever. Take care, everybody. Have a great evening. I will see you all next time.